How we find meaning in our existence is an urgent matter that needs to be addressed as soon as possible, so we can avoid an existential vacuum or meaninglessness and purposelessness. In today's society, it is quite often that people go to a psychiatrist because of boredom rather than distress. We live in a culture that is overstimulated by movies that represents an exciting life. Most people are doomed to reflect on how dull their lives are compared to Tony Stark or Jason Bourne. Similar to how we can never be like the people in the magazines because even the model themselves does not look like that in real life. Thanks to makeup artists, professional lighting and camera crews, spiced with a good amount of photoshopping from a picture that was handpicked out of 500 shots, we now have a false perception of what beauty is, or in our case, what a life worth living is. Viktor Frankl explores the human condition in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, as a prisoner in Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. There are two purposes we must complete in our lifetime. The first one is the inner purpose. This is primarily known as the journey inward. The second one is the outer purpose, which is brilliantly expanded in logotherapy. Logotherapy can be described as the curing of the soul by finding meaning in life. Frankl explains that life is not about a quest of pleasure as explained in Freudian psychoanalysis, or a quest of power, like Adlerian psychology states, but rather a quest for meaning. The ultimate endeavor for any person is to find meaning in one's life. So how do we find meaning in our lives? According to logotherapy, we can discover meaning in our lives in three ways. First, by creating meaningful work or doing a good deed. Do you remember the feeling you got when you offered your service to someone without expecting anything in return? How about when you wholeheartedly gave advice to your friend after listening intently to his or her problems? True meaningful work consists of value added to the whole without expecting personal gain. There was one instance where two prisoners were contemplating suicide. They both lost the will to live. When asked how did they endure that long, the first prisoner stated that it was because he had a daughter in a foreign country, which he adores and longed to be with again. The second was a scientist, and he replied he had unfinished work that needed to be completed once liberated. When they remembered the reason they persevered this long, they dropped the idea of self-annihilation and continued with their captive lives. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Nietzsche. Second, by experiencing something or encountering someone. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sail, explore, dream, discover. H. Jackson Brown from the book P.S. I Love You. In life, you will encounter a person who leaves an imprint on you no matter how brief your connection was. For most people, this is represented by their spouse or best friends. Mine was made when I became friends with a small group of people who might view the ghetto neighborhoods here in the US as the American dream compared to the lives they were living. You see, in my younger years, I was what you would call a happy-go-lucky. I would end up in a situation where I had no place to stay for the night or food to eat. Yet these people did not even hesitate to offer what very little they had to accommodate and feed me. I know I will always find meaning in those connections I made growing up in the Philippines. This motivates me to move forward in life and explore. For the reasons I know, I will keep on encountering people who are just as amazing, if not even more than the people I previously met. Third, is by the attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering. Once there was a general practitioner that consulted Victor for his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, who died 2 years before, whom he loved above all else. He offered no solution and instead confronted him with a question. What would have happened if you died first and your wife would have survived?
Oh, he said. For her it would have been terrible. How she would have suffered.
Then Victor replied, You see, you have saved her from such suffering. The man's expression suddenly became at peace. He shook his hand and left without saying a word. That which does not kill me makes me stronger. Nietzsche. To quote Viktor Frankl, it is a question of attitude one takes over life's challenges and opportunities. Positive attitude enables a person to endure suffering and disappointment, as well as enhancing enjoyment and satisfaction. A negative attitude intensifies pain and deepens disappointment. It undermines and diminishes pleasure, happiness, and satisfaction. It may even lead to depression or physical illness. Mastery of our inner and outer purpose, in my humble opinion, prerequisites the factors that contributes to a fully experienced life. Although our inner purpose has a higher priority, we must also not neglect our outer purpose. That way, we can enjoy our precious time here on earth. On a final note, here's one of my favorite short story which is a metaphor for life. There was a man who had a little boy that he loved very much. Every day after work, the man would come home and play with his little boy. He would always spend all his extra time playing with the little boy. One night, while the man was at work, he realized that he had extra work to do for the evening, and that he wouldn't be able to play with his little boy. But he wanted to be able to give this boy something to keep him busy. So, looking around his office, he saw a magazine with a large map of the world on the cover. He got an idea. He removed the map and then patiently tore it up into small pieces. Then he put all the pieces in his coat pocket. When he got home, the little boy came running to him and was ready to play. The man explained that he had extra work to do and couldn't play just now, but he led the boy into the dining room. Taking out all the pieces of the map, he spread them on the table. He explained that it was a map of the world, and that by the time he could put it back together, his extra work would be finished, and they could both play. Surely this would keep the child busy for hours, he thought. After half an hour later, the boy came to the man and said, Okay, it's finished. Can we play now? The man was surprised, saying, That's impossible. Let's go see. And sure enough, there was the picture of the world all put together, every piece in its place. The man said, That's amazing. How did you do that? The boy said, It was simple, Daddy. On the back of the page was a picture of a man. When I put the man together, the whole world fell into place. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below.